And welcome into the Loochador Podcast, where Texas A&M beats McNeese 52-10. This is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Billy, I go to Academy for everything. I know you do as well. We got Cruz, who just got some new shoes recently, had to go back and get more shoes because when you have 4 kids, you're constantly getting new shoes and, of course, backpacks and all that good stuff.
Is that because they're tearing up shoes and backpacks, or is it because they're growing out of the shoes, or is it because the backpacks come in and out of style too quickly? Well, what's going on here?
My boys like to get, actually my boys don't, my girls like to get new backpacks all the time.
Okay.
Dad, it's the new one. We got to get the new one.
Yeah, it's like me.
The boys are like, Dad, I can just use the same one, but I need some new cleats. Can I have some new cleats? I just bought you cleats. I know, but my foot's growing, Dad. I need some more. So that's why.
Their voices are that deep.
Yeah, they do this when they talk. And they got shoulders kind of up now.
Yeah.
Yep, and they like wearing dry fit. You get a lot of great dry fit there at Academy.
Yeah, absolutely. I went and had to do some shopping here recently for some, let's call it September game day attire.
Yep. Dress in layers?
No, September, non-layers. And I made the mistake in that first game of showing up to game day with kind of a hoodie, little thin, not like this one, but a thin hoodie. But I ended up not going home till like 3:30 that morning. So from 9:30 a.m. till 3:30 a.m. I was wearing that. That was Notre Dame, so I decided to make the move and roll in to Academy and purchase some more breathable game day type attire. Problem is, it was such a beautiful day this week that I didn't even really have to use it.
But you have it.
Yeah.
Stop by your local Academy store at academy.com and gear up for game day because they got it all. All right, so the way I started the post-game wrap yesterday, Billy, is kind of how I'm thinking to start today. I'm not overreacting to anything that I saw from a game over McNeese, but I'm also not going to run away from the positives that I saw. And some of the positives that I saw, I guess we could start with offensively. They scored touchdowns every time Connor Wigman was out there on the field. And to me, that is a positive. Yes, I know the caliber of opponent, but when he touched the ball, they scored 7.
I don't know where do I want to start this week. I'll start with A&M's performance. It was fine. It was exactly what you wanted to see. You got to rest some guys that if you'd have been playing an SEC game would have played this week. It didn't appear you incurred any other significant injuries. You should be pretty damn healthy heading into SEC play, so that was a start. At no point in the game did you struggle at all against a bad opponent. They scored on every drive, right, until it was 45-0.
That sounds right.
They get stopped once in there. I think they scored on every drive until it was 45-0. I think it was touchdowns all the way across until...
It was touchdowns all the way until Marcel took over, and then it was a field goal.
Yep. So, they came out and just straight up handled business. It wasn't even... Not that we thought it was going to be competitive, but yeah, they went 5 touchdowns to open the game, then a field goal. Yeah, because it was 38-0 at the half, and then 2 touchdowns before they finally didn't. They almost had a perfect game offensively. I'm not saying they played perfect football, but touchdowns on every possession. Your starting quarterback came out. He was 11 for 14, very high in all the metrics and rankings. I thought he made some really nice throws.
That pass to Noah was perfect.
Yeah, feet looked a lot better.
That's expected.
He ran more, which I want to see him do. I know some people disagree with me. I want to see more of that. I think he's got the ability to put some pressure on defenses. Nothing crazy, but just enough to do it. Just enough. Because I think as the season goes on for Connor, him getting more production, or A&M getting more production out of the wide receivers, could coincide with Connor extending plays. And I think as he gets back into that mindset that we saw him previously, where he can feel that rush really well and know when he had a great feel for it. He did not show that at all against Notre Dame. He showed more of that this time. I do still wonder a little bit about him going through his progressions, 1 to 2 to 3. And, there's a little bit of that. It still seems to be a little more processing than I want to see.
Saw that too.
And that's obviously not going to fly against really anyone in the Southeastern Conference, even the bad teams. You know, it's not going to fly against Florida this weekend or South Carolina or Arkansas. Those are the lesser teams that you're facing, or Auburn. I mean, that's not gonna work. But I thought Connor looked much more like Connor. And look, if they would have let him cut loose, they could have put up. I mean, I don't know what kind of numbers he could have put up. It could have been just kind of name your yards, name your score there. They took him out, one drive left in the second quarter. So he could have had a monster night. I think the running backs, any one of the two could have gone way over 100 yards. I mean, shoot, they would have been flirting with 150 had they stayed in there for
Le'Veon played basically the first quarters, right?
Well, Le'Veon looked great. Amari got some good work. He needed to with E.J. Smith out. I thought the O-line looked, I don't want to say outstanding. They weren't flawless. There were some times they gave up some pressures and stuff, but O-line continues to look better and better. They continue to look like they're not going to be a weakness. And as the season goes on, if they get better and better, they can be a real strength for the offense. That potential is there from me watching them in 2 games. And look, I'm glad they produced a turnover. They still didn't get a lot of sacks. The concern defensively, look, it was a shutout. Okay, anybody that watches that game, if you want to nitpick and whatever, that the Texas A&M football team, the team that's going to play on Saturdays, the rest of the season, pitched a shutout. I've seen people complain about the rushing yards and run defense and questions and concerns about that. I don't disagree, except I remember a couple of Mike Elko's really good defenses starting out giving up rushing yards to Kent State or Ball State or whoever it was. Right. And I remember sitting in that room and everybody's all concerned. What's going on? And he fixes it, and they fix it, and they adjust. And Elko's always coached strong run defenses. He's going to keep finding the guys that can produce that end result. And I think, what was it here? In the first half, McNeese had 52 yards rushing. 1 came on 26 yards.
Yep.
Their other 11 carries went for, 26 yards. 11 for 26 versus 1 for 26, roughly something like that. If I'm off a little bit, I'm off. But it was you get the gist of it. Half their rushing yards came on 1 run in the first half. The rest of it, if you want to look into that as evidence of anything, more power to you, have fun with it. The reality is, in the first half, okay, they ran for 52, and 11 of their 12 carries totaled 25 yards. So I do think you don't want to be a defense that gives up busts like they did against Notre Dame, like they did on that 1 run. And then as the game went on, they gave up more.
Yep.
But again,
different players.
That's a collection of your second and third team guys. That's a bunch of true freshmen. Sorry, I'm losing my voice this week. But a run defense is, while I don't think you sit there in 2 games and go, oh my God, because you can pick the plays. 95%, I mean, there's 4 run plays that have bust, first half against McNeese. That's not their defense second half. In 6 quarters, there's 4 plays that have busted for 25 or more yards, 25 or more yards. How many runs did McNeese and Notre Dame combine for in those 6 quarters? I'd like to look that up because it's probably Notre Dame had, I think, 34, 35. McNeese had 12, so 46, 47 runs and 4 of them popped. The other 43, 44, nothing. So they need to fix it, yeah. And they need to fix it by Saturday. And they're really going to need to fix it if Derek Lagway is quarterback and he can run some. So there's a lot to talk about what's to come. But in terms of this game, there's nothing wrong with it. You don't need to dare try to glean too much from it. I liked what I saw from Moss. I liked the continued progression of the offensive line. I liked Connor coming back and looking confident and ready to shake off what happened last week. I liked 2 weeks now in a row, Cyrus Allen has kind of caught my eye. And I'm not saying like some all-SEC playmaker, but someone that can help. Someone that can help this offense as this thing goes on to get a little better. And then obviously you love seeing the long touchdown from Terry Bussey. I mean, that was hopefully a sign of things to come.
You mentioned Cyrus Allen. It was good to see Jabri Barber at least getting out there.
Well, what I was told a couple weeks into camp, about the time they're saying, well, he's ahead of schedule, and Elko was saying that.
Yep.
What I was told was that the hope was that he would be all the way back by Arkansas. By that, I mean, whatever he was in spring, he's
back to that.
He's shaking the rust off. It's not that he starts practicing Arkansas week. So all the way back. But considering there's still, from when he took the field, so he had to practice this week, then there's a week to Florida, another week to Bowling Green, another week to Arkansas. I would say it's safe to say he's even a couple weeks ahead of that schedule. So I don't know if it's this weekend in Gainesville or the following weekend at home against Bowling Green, but I think that Arkansas hoped-for timeline from about a month ago has been pushed up even further to where he's actually an impact guy that's pushing for more and more reps and touches.
Can you put your finger on, is it just other teams are getting rid of the ball quicker, why there haven't been more sacks?
I think it's part of that. And I think they're also getting off to a slower start than expected. I mean, call it what it is. I mean, but yeah, I do think teams are very fearful of what A&M's got up front. So they're definitely, especially McNeese this week, they're definitely trying to get rid of the ball quicker, committing more to a run game, and kind of trying to keep A&M off balance. But I also remember us having this discussion when Elko was here, and he didn't have these kind of D linemen. He had good ones, but not this kind that they've got right now in terms of like NFL talent and potential. It can't always be talent and potential, though. But I think starting this weekend in Gainesville, I'd be surprised if you didn't see the Aggies getting after the quarterback. Florida, Arkansas, Missouri. I don't think these are teams. I think these are teams that Florida kind of has to. These are teams that are going to want to test the A&M secondary. They're going to want to hit big plays. They're not going to be – look, Notre Dame knew what they did not have offensively. You saw that again this week. More on that in a second. They knew what they did not have. Denbrock knew that. I think McNeese knew that they might go through three quarterbacks if they tried to get too cute. I think moving forward, especially in these next few weeks, these first three SEC opponents, they're going to say, we're going to run our offense. And we're going to throw the ball down the field, and we're going to use all spots of the field, and we're going to block you. And I think that is going to play better into A&M's hands in terms of getting pressure on QBs. I think it starts Saturday. If it doesn't, and they give up a lot of yards, and it's not just like some kind of weird, unexpected, one-dimensional run game from Florida, then I'll be surprised. And it might not, if Lagway plays, it might not be, they should get some sacks. He should. Going against the Mike Elko defense, he should see ghosts. He should not like what he sees a lot of times after the ball snapped. There should be hesitation. They should get to him this weekend, even if he, whether he plays well or not, they should get to him this weekend. So I think starting with actually SEC play, ironically enough, you'll see the Aggies start putting more heat on quarterbacks.
With more heat, hopefully comes more turnovers, but they did force a couple turnovers, and one of those was because of the heat. That the sixth killer faced. But Will Lee, he got himself a pick. Marcus Radcliffe as well.
Will Lee's been a really exciting addition through two games. I'm fired up about him. I'm fired up about how many guys they're playing in that secondary. You saw some true freshmen get in there. We saw Miles Davis come downhill. And as Belko said, I think his first snap and almost KO the McNeese running back. So they're playing a ton of dudes in the secondary, and I like it. I don't know when that rotation will start to tighten up, but I think it will. But Ratcliffe is another one through 2 games that's impressed me. As far as like the newcomers in that secondary that have jumped out, Ratcliffe and Lee and Ratcliffe are probably 1-2 for me right now.
Yeah. Do we want to get into Notre Dame's loss yesterday?
Well, yeah, but I think it kind of is there's 2 things here, and I'm writing about it right now. It's the Notre Dame loss and the Texas win, and we got to tackle both of those because it directly impacts this football team. It's your first opponent and your last. But I will say this. It's what's in between those 2 that's going to define this season for Mike Elko. I'm not saying you're going to go lose to Texas at the end. I'm saying take that one and set it aside. If these 2 teams played today, Texas would win, and they'd win handily because A&M wouldn't be able to score enough points to keep up, no matter how well the defense played. Now, I don't think the defense is up to snuff enough yet for that offense anyway. That Texas offense is clicking and firing at a higher rate than the A&M defense is, than the Michigan defense was. But that is the final game of a season, and if you've ever watched college football, you know that what's going on in week 2 does not always mean what's going on in week 12. I would take that one. I would file it away. I would take the Notre Dame game at this point, and I would file it away. Now, then I would critically analyze and say, okay, what does that mean for A&M right now? But the reality is, unless the Aggies finish 9-3 and are left out of the playoff because they didn't beat Notre Dame to go 10-2, that game truly is not going to matter unless the Aggies are 9-3. It's just, so rather than sit there and bemoan what happened in that game, I would say I'd be a lot more worried about what's going to happen at the Swamp Saturday. I'd be a lot more worried about even Bowling Green coming in here, who almost beat Penn State. I'd be worried about Arkansas and Jerry World, who, talk about them in a second, gave me a little mixed bag up there in Stillwater, some really good and then some kind of, oh yeah, but that's still going on. With that said, Notre Dame, you watch them lose to Northern Illinois, and I get it, and people will say this is coping or some kind. It's not. It's just, if you don't think this is true, then I think you would probably need to check yourself. They came in here at this level. That was a massive hangover. Mm-hmm. But Northern Illinois took it to them. Yep. And Northern Illinois made life more miserable on Riley Leonard in front of touchdown Jesus than A&M was able to do in front of the 12th man. That concerns me. For now, for right now, for what it means in the Florida game. Right. That's what I'm talking about. Because the Aggies, regardless of what Notre Dame was doing, we said this last week, they weren't going to get any positive attention or praise from anybody outside of this room and that stadium until they beat Florida, beat Arkansas, and beat Missouri. That's it. We said it a week ago. It wasn't going to happen. And guess what? Even with Notre Dame losing, if Texas A&M wins those 3 games, they're going to get a ton of praise and credit because they're going to be 3-0 in the SEC. And their next game is going to be against Mississippi State. That's when A&M will start getting credit, if they can do that. So that didn't change with Notre Dame losing. All that changed is if you somehow this team really figures it out and is a playoff contender, it could keep you out.
But I think
and you could have a lot better vibes, surrounding the program right now than you do.
What I think some people do is beyond that is, well, what I've seen against Notre Dame and what I've seen against McNeese makes me wonder, can they actually do what we just said and beat Arkansas and beat Florida?
That's why you look at that. That's what I was saying. That's why you look at that game. Because you didn't dominate that O-line. Northern Illinois whipped that O-line's ass. Okay? You were unable to get big plays against that Notre Dame defense that I still think is really good. but they had an exceptional running back that had an 85-yard catch and run, and he ran well. Now, it settled in, but they still popped a couple big plays. Had A&M been able to do that, they probably win that game.
0 big plays, yeah.
They had none. So, yeah, I mean, the A&M offense struggled against the Notre Dame defense more than Northern Illinois did. And I get that there's a level of focus and how jacked up they are, and there's
matchups too.
But the reality is you do have to watch that game because I don't believe in the transitive property much in football, but when it's back-to-back weeks and that's all you have to go on, you can certainly look at it and go, But then let's take that same look at some of these other teams. So it is Florida you're playing. They got humiliated by Miami. They have a quarterback that's a veteran that's going to be trying to come back from a concussion. They have a quarterback that's a really talented true freshman that looked spectacular thrown against air. And unlike the Aggies against McNeese, Florida said, hey, let's just start taking long ball deep shots. And that will be a big difference for Derek Lagway if he's playing A&M on Saturday and not Samford. Florida is on the brink of falling off the cliff with Billy Napier. If A&M wins this game Saturday, he might not be their head coach on Sunday or Monday. So, move forward. Look at Arkansas. They go up to Stillwater. I thought their offense looked kind of scary. Saw somebody said they have another Johnny Manziel at quarterback. I'm like, what the frick? What are you guys doing now? It's not that. But he's athletic and he looks, he's playmaking talent. They did it for a half, but that's the same defense that Marcel Reed got, hey, get off the bench. I know you didn't think you were playing. I know you've never played it down in college football, but come play in this game. He had 390 yards of offense. Mm-hmm. So, and oh, by the way, they still lost. So Arkansas, I think they're going to be better than we thought. But I think those two teams are going to struggle as combined to finish above 500. That's your next two conference opponents. Mississippi State lost at Arizona State, and they were getting their asses kicked. They lost at Arizona State. Auburn lost at home to Cal. Mm-hmm. Your quarterback threw 4 interceptions that you put all your stock in, inexplicably put all your stock in.
Agree.
South Carolina had a nice win.
Put one on
Big
Kentucky.
Win. I'm going to pay Mark Stoops joke somewhere in there. I'm going to pay a lot more attention this weekend to South Carolina LSU than I thought I was. If they fall flat at home, I think it's just that maybe Kentucky stinks. If they don't and they beat LSU, they're on the radar. So they're a TBD, but it's South Carolina still. Yep. LSU gave up 21 in Nichols. Nichols is like McNeese State level. He gave up 21 to them. I think they gave up, I don't know how many in the first half, but it was at least a couple touchdowns in the first half. So this schedule is not tough. And other teams are looking at A&M and they're going, they lost to Notre Dame, who lost to Northern Illinois.
We can get them.
And they said that they're not putting up yards offensively, or their quarterback is struggling. They're not going to respect the O-line yet. Their defense is giving up big play. Whatever you want to look at, that's what teams are saying about A&M. So starting last Saturday, last Sunday after they lost to Notre Dame, it's this, man. Who can get better as the season goes on out of this pack? A&M plays everyone they play except Texas is from this pack. Missouri might be at the top of the pack. I'm still not completely.
I'm not convinced about them.
Bought in on them. But I look at them and I go, who's in this pack? I think Tennessee is out of the pack for now. I think they're good.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
I think Heupel's got something going there this year with Nico. Now, OU's in the pack. They almost fell out of the pack. They're about to lose to U of H. They might lose to Tulane this weekend. A&M's in the pack. LSU. Like I said, I think Missouri's at the top. I think Arkansas, South Carolina, Kentucky, those teams are at the bottom of the pack. Thought Auburn might be middle of the pack. They might, right now, at this point in the year, be bottom of the pack. Florida's down there. who's going to come up and be at the top of that group? Is it going to be Missouri?
So
is it going to be A&M?
Is the SEC taking a step back, other than your top two teams, Georgia and Texas, unfortunately?
Ole Miss TBD.
Oh, yeah,
we won't know anything
yeah.
about them because they won't play anyone with a pulse until like game set. Well, I think one of the big ones for them was, early on was like Kentucky. So that's going to be. So I think Ole Miss will be pretty damn good, honestly, and I think so. And I think you still keep Bama in there. I know that was scary, what was going on, but then what they did in the fourth quarter was like it had to get your attention. I mean, hell, they covered.
Yeah.
Ultimately covered in the game. They were up by 1 point early fourth. So, man, it is a crowded bunch, Nuño. But I'm not impressed with the schedule now moving forward. But if Notre Dame were in the SEC, they'd have been in that group too. And a week ago, the Aggies lost to them. So that's the thing. Like if I said of these 8 SEC games left, there's only 8 of them. If I said 7 of them are pretty balanced, especially when you factor in road at South Carolina, neutral Arkansas, road at Mississippi State. If all 3 of those were at home, I'd say win, win, win. But those are your road ones, road at Auburn. Those 4 at Kyle Field are wins, in my opinion. They're neutral and road. So you factor all that in, they're all pretty evenly matched. Well, you know what tends to happen in those type games? You go 3-4 or 4-3. You play 7 pretty evenly matched conference games, and you're not an outstanding team, you're going to basically win some, lose some. And that's been the story of A&M football. And that's been the story of a lot of teams in this league not named Alabama and not named Georgia. So for A&M to not be in that 3-4 and finish 7-5, or 4-3 and finish, 8-4, I think the key to that, and that's not even counting the Texas game. The key to that not happening is they got to make a jump. They got to make the same jump that Florida's trying to make and that Arkansas. So
this week,
this is the biggest game, I think. I think the 2 defining games of this season are going to be
this week
at Florida and Arkansas in a couple weeks. Because the Aggies are going to have to just fight through it like they failed to do against Notre Dame. And they're going to have to fight through it. But unlike those past teams, a couple of years ago after A&M lost to App State, they had to fight through Miami, and they fought through Arkansas, and they won both. And then it came apart. I think the difference is you're in season 1 under a new head coach. It's a new tenure. Guys are learning the expectation, the culture. Coaches are learning the players. They're figuring out who to play, who not to play. And I think as you fight, if they can fight through these 2, I think this football team is going to end up being pretty good. And I think this football team is going to be one that can ascend higher than South Carolina and even LSU, who, by the way, took a big loss on Saturday. They lost Guillory, their big D tackle. They're already really thin there. Their defense is already kind of looking shaky. I think A&M's ascent can be better than every team they play the rest of the way until they get to Texas, who's already kind of ascended.
Right.
But to get there, they're going to have to just gut it out starting Saturday.
What's so fun about fun? It can take any form. Be a sacred ritual.
Who wants chicken?
Or a random whim. For us, fun is everything. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Have fun out there.
So, Billy, here's the way I'm looking at it as of today, and this all can evolve. I know Mike Elko is going to figure out the defensive part of it because he's done it before, right? So I'm not worried about that. The Connor question is, I still think it's in his head more than anything else, and I tend to think he's going to figure out who he's been through now 10 starts at A&M eventually, and we may have just seen it here. So I tend to think is if you can win those, I don't want to call it 50-50 games, those grind-out games, and they lost their first one, it's going to be figured out, right? So if you beat Florida, now you're like, all right. And depending on how you beat Florida, by the way, but if you beat Florida, then why wouldn't you expect them to take care of business outside of Missouri, which you just said a moment ago you're not convinced of yet. You might be, right? The jury's still out.
They're not playing anyone that's going to convince me until they come here.
Right. And
I guess they got Boston College this weekend. Actually, a decent little test.
Yeah. So to me, it's can you buy enough time with wins as you figure it out? Because I do think Elko will figure it out.
Yeah, with wins, because I think this is a really big weekend for Connor and this year's team. I really do, and I think, look, you got Graham Mertz, who's a journeyman senior. You got Lagway, who's a true freshman that's made one.
He has to start Lagway, doesn't he?
I would think so. I mean, are you trying to save your job or not?
That's the only, because if you start
go
Mertz,
down swinging.
right? If you start Mertz and lose, you're done.
But you could also bring Mertz off the bench.
Right.
If Lagway is struggling, everyone would understand that.
Right.
Everyone would understand, okay, I'm going back to my veteran. He was hurt. He understood it. He's fine. He can come back. So I think you have to. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he will. And that's how coaches tend to get in this position. They make bad decisions like that. So, but I think Connor needs this game. I think McNeese game was nothing but just kind of a, hey, get out there, complete some passes, feel good, play another couple quarters in this offense. You know, like that's what that was. Connect with your receivers some. This is a real game Saturday in a very tough environment.
This is a game.
Have we seen Connor? What has Connor done in his short starting career on the road?
He hasn't won.
Has he played anyone?
He played Miami on the road.
Miami and Auburn.
Yep.
Those are the two that might be the only two.
That's it.
And
he played well in Miami.
Yeah, he did.
And Auburn.
But he also was pretty jumpy at the start of that game.
Yeah.
And Auburn, the whole team played bad. That was kind of, to me, that was almost like the end of the Jimbo.
Follow me here.
Really.
Is it, I don't want to say it's a legacy-defining game for Connor, only if he plays poorly. You see what I'm saying? Like, because people are going to make up their opinion of him.
It could go. I do feel like this is that game where it could go one way or the other. Because I think, but again, I go back to Arkansas too. Because I think this one he has to go prove it in a hostile environment. And then you're going to go into a semi-hostile environment, big stakes environment up in Dallas in a game where, quite frankly, the Aggies might need to score some points. I mean, I don't know if they need to go out and score 40, but they might need to score some points. And that's one of those games where Connor's going to have to take this offense up and down. And he'll have to do a lot of it, again, by extending plays and giving these receivers maybe more chances in some instances than they can create. So I think these next couple of starts for Connor will kind of define his season. And if he's as good as, I saw someone say that we said he was going to be a top 10 pick. I would say to that, shut your ass up, stop posting on the site. We didn't say that. We're talking about what people saw.
NFL analysts have
if you don't like me or us or anybody reporting on that, again, I would suggest not listening. Don't read any of it. Go cry or come in here and say something, which you won't. Whatever, the door's right there. We're trying to help the 99% of people hear stuff that they do want to hear. What are other people saying around the conference, around the country, around the NFL, around college football? What are people saying about this team, about the recruits they're getting, about the players, about the coaches? If you don't like that, you are not going to complain enough to make me or David or Olin or Bronny or Hal or anybody stop providing every other one of your fellow Aggies with that information. So you are fighting a losing battle, and the losing battle will lead to you being no longer a part of this. It's very simple. With that said, sorry to those of you that had to hear that, but you guys also know there's some that do need to hear that. With that said, I'm talking to an NFL guy during that game that was really watching Connor intently because he was one of the guys that really went all in on Connor based off game tape. And was his first chance to really get to sit there and watch him in person. I had scouts that came in during the summer that were the same way, that watch tape and they're like, damn, oh, this guy's got it. This guy, and then they come to practice to watch. So if he has that in him, he's got to flip the switch now.
Yep.
He doesn't have to be the best he's going to be. This is a maturation process. It's
he needs
a
to be
season.
good.
It's a career. He has to go be good at the Swamp Saturday. He has to be good in Jerry World, and he has to just keep playing good and building on that. He has to be good for him to be Bowling Green.
Well, back to something I asked
The
you
way
last
they
week.
played against Notre Dame, especially now that we see Notre Dame for who they are, which is, I still think, a really good defense, a damn good defense, and no offense. And other than Jeremiah Love's
He's pretty darn good.
freaking talented. But if A&M plays like they did then, and meaning if Connor does too,
They're going to lose those games.
they could lose every one of them
Yep.
except New Mexico State, who, by the way, did beat Auburn last year by 3 touchdowns. But he doesn't have to be as. If A&M's going to beat Texas later in the year, Connor's going to have to be sensational. Connor just has to be good these next few weeks, and if he is, Texas A&M's going to be a team that people finally go, okay, maybe they're getting it figured out under Mike Elko.
It's something that I asked you last week, and I think it applies right here. If Connor's good, they beat Notre Dame. Not great.
Yep.
If Connor is good, I think they beat Florida. If Connor is good, they beat Arkansas.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. If
I
he's
agree
good,
with
he
that.
doesn't have to be great. He needs to be good. And when he's good, it allows Le'Veon to get some, and it allows for Amari to get some. His did we talk about receivers and what you saw from them? Because I think we talked more from a Connor perspective. Anything about the receivers that?
I mentioned Cyrus.
Yeah. Anything else from the receivers?
I was going to
that-
see if you.
Yeah.
You sound like you want to say something.
No, I thought in the beginning I didn't see open receivers, and then I did start seeing open receivers. I felt like it took a little while, kind of like an old guy warming up to go for a jog. It took a little while, and then because I go back to the Noah Thomas touchdown, that was a beautiful route. It was beautifully thrown, and he was open. But I felt like in the very beginning, I'm like, and I do think Connor missed a couple of reads early. In the beginning of the game, I don't think he fired the ball as quickly as I'd like him to.
Yeah. I still think not open enough. I saw more guys open LSU, USC than I did for A&M against McNeese, like running in stride, crossing the field, wide open. The same in a lot of games I watched this weekend. You look at and I'm not comparing A&M's offense to Texas, but you look at how they scheme and get guys open. They're better players right now at the skill spots. Other than Moss, who I think's really good, A&M needs to continue to get better players at the skill spots. I mean, some of that would come with confidence and experience. Like Cyrus Allen has played 2 games in this system. He can get better in this system. Noah Thomas, maybe he needed that touchdown to get him going. Moose got himself a touchdown. Maybe they punched some guy out, and the guy took his mouthpiece. I get it. We're all hotheads around here, but can't really do that in football. Punch some guy out, but he had a touchdown. Maybe he starts to, he got a taste for some success and says, okay, I'm going to have a really good week here leading up to Florida because I really want to play in that damn game. So, Jade with the hand injury, you should expect him back. Those guys can get better, but I think Jabri and I think Terry Bussey, I think more of those guys is what starts to get this thing going. But either way, Connor can only be so good if he doesn't have open guys.
Yeah.
But I thought the receiver play it had to be better. It had to against McNeese versus Notre Dame, and it was. But I still think they're a work in progress.
Well, and they also weren't going to show much, right?
No.
They weren't going to get creative. They were just going to be very basic, and they still scored 7 for 7, whatever it was to
I
start
would
the game.
love to see this be.
6 of 7.
I would love to see A&M go on the road, get a hell of an effort from your quarterback, and go handle business in a tough environment, break that road losing streak. And how much better do you feel coming back? But that is so far from a guarantee. Florida has players. You can beat them. Miami showed you can make them quit. They're ready to be finished off. Does A&M have what it takes to go in there and do it in game 3 under Mike Elko in their first road trip? And by do it, I mean win by a point or win by 21 points. I don't care. Just can they go in there and get that W? I would love to see them go down there and look like a team that gets it. They're like, okay, well, we're going in there to win a football game on the road in a tough environment. It's going to take a certain mindset, and we absolutely intend on doing that. And everything we do this week is going to be geared towards doing that because we know we can and we know we will. That's as much as we like to think that little speech would work or something. If it was that easy, everyone would do it. You've got to kind of reach a point, I think, mentality-wise, to be able to do that. And sadly, Texas did that yesterday. And Texas did that last year against Bama. They've won in Tuscaloosa and the Big House in the last 2 seasons. Credit them. But, man, A&M needs to break a losing streak this weekend on the road. I mean, you can just look at what's going on 90 miles down the road and say they need to break this streak this weekend. Not because of what Texas is doing, but when you pair it up and juxtapose it to that, you're like, dude, come on now. And it's not Tim Tebow led Florida. It's not Danny Werfel throwing to Chris Doering down there. Like, they need to go in there and win this weekend, whether it's a tough one or whether they come out and play their asses off. Either way, it's time to start. And by the way, a 1-0 SEC start would be huge, especially, again, like I said, when you look at that conference schedule.
There would be so much goodwill, Billy, to all the negativity that we've had around here for now 8 days. There would be so much goodwill if you start off SEC play with a win, but not only a win, and you also shut the door on a narrative of, not even a narrative, a fact that you haven't won on the road in almost 3 years. Yep. It would just feel completely different. Like what we have felt this last 8 days would feel different.
Yeah, it would. And look, nothing's going to come easy for them this year. It's just not. And I don't anticipate Saturday will either. But yeah, you would love to just go, man, A&M played good football Saturday. Because I think if you say that, they're going to win the game. You want to say A&M played good football. You don't want it to look like, let's say A&M got that stop against Notre Dame and they won the game 16-13. That would have been great for last Saturday. At the moment where Notre Dame was, yada, yada. If they win that type of game against Florida, I'm going to be plenty happy about it, and A&M, all Aggies should, but it's not going to feel as great as if we start seeing them play really good football. I said earlier, it's a matter of just surviving and advancing to the next SEC game. But as you're trying to look down the schedule and say, hey, can we win, a good number of games to get people's attention and start to change this culture around here? In order to do that, they got to start playing noticeably better football at some point. So you'd love to see that happen in 6 days from now.
I was going to ask, and I had to look it up. When's the last time A&M won a comfortable game against a quality opponent? Like comfortable. You could look at Arkansas last year. They won by 14? They won by 12, excuse me. But it felt like at the end...
You're calling them a quality opponent. You mean just a conference opponent?
Sorry, yes. A quality opponent, I don't know when the last time was. Yeah. But a conference opponent, Auburn last year, you beat 27-10, and that was comfortable. Peyton Thornton did nothing against you.
I think you'd probably count that. I know Auburn wasn't good, but Auburn also came within like a play of beating Georgia and Bama last year. And you beat the crap out of them.
Yeah.
So I would say, I guess that one, they're few and far between. I mean, Arkansas, you handled them in that game last year. But we're talking about Auburn and Arkansas, though.
Who did what? How many games?
When's the last time A&M? But that's the deal. I don't think Florida's any different. So that's my take. By the way, I'm going to piss some people off here. I watched a lot of that game, and then I watched some more of it later. Michigan's not good, guys.
Unfortunately,
and
I thought that was
Texas
going to be the case.
So don't misconstrue that. Michigan's not good. the team that I'm wondering about the most right now is Oregon. Walk-off field goal to beat Boise. They barely beat Idaho a week earlier. I think they were up 3 with 5 minutes left or something. So,
And I expected them to be good this year.
yeah, like national title contending good. Their O-line's struggling. It goes to show you when you can't get it done up there, you got problems. But Michigan might lose to USC, Oregon, Ohio State, Texas. They got to go to Washington. I think they play like UCLA. I don't know what that means, but or no, that's actually not them. That's LSU that plays UCLA. But and Michigan State. Like I think that's a 7-5, maybe 8-4 football team. The weird thing about college football, everybody's talking now like, oh, look what Notre Dame really was. Doesn't matter when you lose to them. Probably would have mattered more if A&M beat them, because then their win really gets tainted.
Yeah.
And then if you're looking at later in the year, you're sitting here at 2-0, you're going, that Notre Dame game might not mean jack, or it certainly means a lot less. Texas beat the defending national champs yesterday. They broke a long losing streak in Ann Arbor. That team's going to lose a lot of games. I'm convinced Texas is one of the 3 best in the country right now after what I saw yesterday up there. But I would still say tap breaks. You know, I think, again, one of the 3 best. But I want to see them play. I don't know who they're going to play for a while. Georgia's the one.
So, yeah, that's not
That's
far
the
away.
one. It's early October. It's October 12th. Or no, that's OU. It's in a few weeks.
They play Georgia on have it right here?
It's the F1
October 19th.
Okay, so it's the week after. So
So it's after Texas OU.
I don't think you learn everything about Texas till then, and I don't know how much that game will truly matter. A&M might be the only thing in there to try to stop it, because they could lose to Georgia and lose an SEC title game and they would still be in the playoff.
Yep.
So Texas is looking great, but man, I for as impressed as I was by them, it gets like quote worthy when you say this, because everyone wants to, take some kind of faux offense to something. But I'm just saying, I was equally as unimpressed with Michigan as I was impressed with Texas on Saturday. That team
was terrible.
I mean, they got first of all, they got some of the same issues that Notre Dame and A&M have shown. Offensively, their just points are going to be harder to come by. But I think when you look at all 3 of those teams, and you look at Riley Leonard and Connor and the Michigan quarterback, who do you think has a better chance to really look like a different player later in the season?
Connor.
That's what I think. I mean, he has to prove me right there, but I certainly think so, and I would hope so. But
By the way, I think OB's the one who said this in the week. Vandy was supposed to, what was their win total, like 2.5, 3, something like that? They've already got 2. They play, Georgia State next. Then it gets real. It gets real after that. They get Mizzou and Alabama. But I like
Vandy
them.
will sneak around and win. Vandy will sneak around and win a game or 2 in the conference this year. I haven't looked. I honestly haven't been interested enough to look.
Me either. I'm just doing it right now.
But I watched them in that opener against Vatech, and over a course of 8 games and playing in the East. Well, I guess they're not technically playing in the East anymore. But I think Vandy will sneak around and get at least a game in conference, if not 2.
They're at Kentucky.
Yeah, like things like that. Yeah.
I think they go to Auburn. Those are winnable games.
Yeah.
If that's the Auburn team we saw.
Auburn, man, look, I'm going to sit here today and say A&M has a lot of question marks through 2 games with a big game upcoming. But damn does everybody else. And you might have lost to Notre Dame at home in the final couple minutes. But 4 interceptions by really your only option at quarterback against a Cal team that was damn near like Cal, and really got handled throughout a lot of that game by Cal. They've got I think they've got some real issues over
Billy,
there.
you've got 2 or 3.
I don't get it either. You freeze. Like, I don't get it.
You've got a few teams that are really good, and then everybody else, just throw it up in the air.
Yeah. I wish we had more answers on A&M. I really do.
Yeah.
We knew we weren't going to get any in a 52-10 game against McNeese that was 45-0 midway through the third quarter. It's a lot better than the alternative. We joked about Seth falling behind 16-0 to McNeese. That was like a higher-end FCS team at the time. Like they might have gone on a deep playoff run that year. But either way, like we've seen A&M struggle against crappy teams. I watched A&M lead Nichols, or tied with Nichols State, I think 10-10 in the fourth quarter with Kellen Mond. They brought Jay Kubanek in to finish that one out. That was the week after they lost to UCLA. So, like, there have been much that you could have seen it be 17-0 at halftime, and A&M ends up winning it, 38-10. It feels a lot different. This was an ass kick, and this is what we wanted, but you don't learn a lot. I wish we knew more about A&M. We don't yet. We're about to start.
I would like Bowling Green before Florida. I'd like one more,
Bowling Green.
They look legit.
Bowling Green might beat Florida.
Yeah, you're right about that.
If they played this week. So, I mean, it's time for them. It's time for them to go on the road, get tested, and for Elko to learn about his team. Like, hey, what kind of grit and toughness does this team have?
Yep.
What are they? What are we about? We lost a game. We were really disappointed. We knew we should have won. What are we about now? I think it's time to start finding out.
Thank you, Billy.
All right, David.
All right, that's going to do it for the Loochador Podcast, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. See you tomorrow on TexAgs Live.
Fun, memories, friendship. We're here for all of it. Here for the big moments and the small ones too. We're here for unforgettable triumph, momentary misfortune, and the impromptu throwdown. We're out here each day, chasing something great. Call it adventure, call it play, we call it fun. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Have fun out there.